Get your popcorn ready because while the Los Angeles Chargers social media team might be undefeated and they win the schedule release each year with super clever, creative, awesome things that are hilarious and make us laugh, it also really ticks off some people when you call a star wide receiver garbage. And so in this video, we're going to break down while the Los Angeles Chargers just created a massive problem and gave an even bigger chip to a team who in this league already just seems to be walking around like they have a permanent chip on their shoulders, the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders had an offseason, ton of question marks. I'm going to talk about what happened, what the reaction was, and how I think that plays out for the Vegas Raiders this coming offseason. If you're new to the channel, this is the Daily Huddle, and along with Nate and Aaron, we bring you the biggest news in sports, and so let's dive right in. If you like sports, which you do because you're watching this, and you like to be caught up to speed and laugh a little bit and just have a ton of fun with some bros, helps us out a ton if you would like and subscribe. So we know the Los Angeles Chargers do some pretty hilarious schedule releases. They did the funny video game Sims reenactment where there's like all those Easter eggs and little things. And one of the things they did was to announce the different games, they compared them and made little Pop-Tarts for them. And some of them were really benign, like they did here with Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, like as a Pop-Tart with just the colors. They went out and called Davante Adams garbage, like a garbage flavor of Pop-Tart, which sounds disgusting. I think the only flavor of Pop-Tart that is actually good is strawberry, only in the toaster, and then I even put some butter on it, which is how I get these giant guns here. But nonetheless, how do you think this sat with Davante Adams, and how do you think that sits with, the Raiders are back to their bad boy ways. They don't have Josh McDaniels, the pretty boy from New England anymore. Like, they got a players coach who is in mold with Dan Campbell and wants to bite some kneecaps, and I just think this is going to fire him up. And I thought it at the time, and now Davante Adams just ripped the Band-Aid right off and went right at them for that on the Kay Adams show. And so he talked about how he felt about it in this little clip right here.
They posted me and then like a trash can or something like that. The Chargers did. So
they posted me in a trash can. We just saw that. And so he was like, how do you think he's going to respond to that? Is he just not going to say anything? He said, you know what? I almost went on social media and went at them, but instead he decided to.
It'd be better to, just beat their head in real life and continue doing it the way, because my first game against them, I don't know.
It'd be better instead of beating their head in, or instead of posting on social media, we're going to beat their head in. And then he goes on to just talk about his stats against the Chargers the past couple of years, which were unreal. Although my boy Pat Surtain always has Davante Adams on lockdown, and I think we'll continue to this year. A couple just quick reactions to this is man, if you are a team, I love the laughs, and I know the Chargers really need a fan base, and they want people to like them. Pretty much every single Chargers game is a home game for the other team because LA is a great place to go and travel. And because they uprooted themselves from San Diego, didn't even have a massive following there at San Diego. It didn't really follow. So I think while it might be good for them to start to build a fan base, ticking off teams that you got to play twice a year and right off the bat with a brand new coach, just not the best move here. So we got Raiders Chargers week 1. We are all going to want to circle that because that already is a rivalry game in the AFC West, and now there's even more juice on it. And again, they play much later in the season. I think they play on January 5th, which you can't see on my screen, but they play the last week of the league, which will be inconsequential because we know the Chargers will be out of the playoffs then. But really, I think if we look at truly the big offseason storylines for the Vegas Raiders is that what is this new Antonio Pierce system going to look like? I think there is always a tendency, especially when we're looking at the formerly Oakland Raiders and then the Vegas Raiders, is that they have a coach they don't like, they fire the coach, and they rally behind someone else, and they go all gas, no brakes for that new coach, and then that never really translates. So is Antonio Pierce going to be able to keep that up? In this article, it talks about how many Vegas Raiders went to bat to make sure that the Raiders hired Antonio Pierce. They're currently still paying 3 coaches right now because they're paying Josh McDaniels, and I believe they're still paying John Gruden, which is not ideal if you are the Vegas Raiders. But if Antonio Pierce is Himothy, as the kids would say, it was a very, very smart move. And so we knew that Max Crosby came out and was like, I'm going to demand a trade unless you hire Antonio Pierce. And then you see for the first time here that it's also what Davante Adams went to bat for as well, saying everybody wants him. And I made the front office know they didn't really have any other choice. So I think the big question is, can Antonio Pierce have the players coach mentality and the accountability that it takes to be a great head coach in the NFL? So I think you've had tons of players coaches. We just fired one in Nathaniel Hackett. Everyone loved him. He had super soakers and food trucks and ice cream trucks and a game room, and everyone loved him and was laughing all the time, but he wasn't able to keep players accountable. And then you have other teams where your coach just is great at the accountability piece, like a Josh McDaniels, like a Bill Belichick, and nobody has any fun playing for him. And so you really have to toe that line. And I think Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions do that perfectly. I think he is a player's coach because he was a great player in the NFL. And then he's also able to relate to the players in a way that is very, very on par with Antonio Pierce. So really my question going into this season is he going to be able to keep players accountable? Other big questions for the Vegas Raiders going into this season is Josh Jacobs was always a nightmare to play as a Broncos fan, and to let him walk to the Green Bay Packers. And basically we know he came out and kind of threw the team under the bus and said that he was asked to take less money with the Vegas Raiders to lose. And so is there a losing culture with the Vegas Raiders? Not sure. And can Zamir White, Amir Abdullah, and Alexander Madison step in to fill that role? And then really, like Davante Adams, top 5 receiver in the NFL, I would say. Probably top 1 haircut. Like I've thought about doing an updo like the Marge Simpson look there. Let me know if you think that would be a good look with me in the comments. But who's the quarterback going to be? Is it Aiden O'Connell? Is it Jimmy Garoppolo? Or not Jimmy Garoppolo, mustache. Gardner Minshew and his mustache. Who's going to step in and really take that quarterback role by the horns? We've heard Antonio Pierce be like, hey, everything runs through AOC. He's our quarterback, but they gave a ton of money to Gardner Minshew. And I think the Denver Broncos are the perfect example of, we said last year Russell Wilson was the dude, but then we paid the highest backup salary in the NFL to Jarrett Stidham, who at the end of the year ended up being Sean Payton's guy. So who is the quarterback who's going to be able to get Davante Adams the ball? What is it going to look like with Brock Bowers? Everyone's saying that he's a generational tight end, but they said the same thing about Kyle Pitts. And there's been a lot of tight ends who've been deemed the new tight end mold. And he is pretty small for a tight end. I think he's 6'2", so he's a little man. I probably could beat him up in a fight. I'm not sure. Probably I could. But it's going to be a very, very interesting offseason, and a big L for the Los Angeles Chargers and a big W for the Vegas Raiders. We will see. Make sure you hit that like button on the way out, and thanks for huddling up.